Gavin Newsom does all his videos and his vlogs and his address to the nation. I was like, do one good thing for taxpayers in California and then go after Trump. One piece of legislation or one move that would help your average California taxpayer, and then you can assassinate Trump verbally. But Gavin Newsom's a sociopath. I don't think people really fully understand who that guy is and who that guy isn't. He is nothing. He'll talk about trans rights and sports if he's in one setting and then say it's unfair in another setting. I don't think people fully understand who that guy is. I sat in a room with him for an hour and tried to talk to him, and there's nothing there. And the idea that he has designs on, sort of global domination is insane, because he's basically a guy, he's like a guy who runs the world's worst taco stand. He makes the worst tacos, and then he starts saying, I want a franchise and get my horrible tacos to everyone in the United States. And I'm the guy who lives across the street from his taco stand going, this guy makes the worst tacos ever. He wants to franchise. It's never going to work. You can always tell he's full of shit when he does his damn and hell. Like, these damn people come here to work hard. Hell, I don't care what I sound like right now. Damn. When he says damn and hell, that's his false sort of out. He does a feigned outrage thing. People would say the same about Trump. They go, he's a sociopath. He's whatever. Okay. All granted. But Trump always talks about taxes and border, the economy, and gas prices and stuff like that. If I heard Newsom go, gas prices in California are way too high, I got to bring them down, I don't care what it's going to take, I'm going to do it, then I would go, well, all right, well, the sociopath makes a point. But he never says that. He blames the oil companies, and it turns out it's not the oil companies gouging us, it's your overregulated state that is causing the high gas prices. I ran into him briefly during Chris Cuomo's show, right before the debate with him and Trump, where he was explaining that Biden was going to mop up Trump in the debate. I should take Gavin Newsom to the track and pick some ponies with me and really, really make some coin. But I did ask him about shutting down the beaches and arresting guys paddleboarding in the bay and shutting down outdoor dining. And he didn't have any answers. But you know what their number one answer with COVID is? We didn't know. We didn't know anything. Oh, okay. That's a fantastic. What a leader. You didn't know anything. So you bulldoze skate parks at the beach and you cut down the outdoor volleyball courts at the beach because you didn't know anything. Okay, what else don't you know about that you can then overreact to and then we can be victims of, genius? I argued with him about many subjects, but one of the arguments I was actually thinking about today is I said, where are the dads? Why don't you tell these people, stay behind and raise your kids? Now, for him, he thinks that's a hate crime. So if you say, so what Gavin Newsom does is he goes, black people and brown people are suffering in inordinately, in much higher levels than everyone else. And then you say, why are they suffering? And then he says, everyone's suffering. Why did you only bring up those two groups? And then he says, because they're suffering so much more. And then I say, why are they suffering so much more? And then he goes into a long-winded sort of hodgepodge of racial missteps of this country and acts from the 60s and the 40s. And then I start bringing up dads not being present in the home. And then he argues about it, and then he says it's important, and then he goes back and says it's got to be many different things, and that's just one of the things. And then he's essentially arguing against gravity. And when people are arguing against what is, then they have to bend themselves into pretzels in order to do it. Because if I said, well, I'm taking the pro-gravity argument, and you said, I'm taking the negative gravity argument, and I said, oh, okay, good. Hear this? There you go. Argue away. they couldn't just come up with a 3-word answer. They'd have to start going into systemic this and historical that and what we didn't know about Evian bottles and carpeting. And they would have to go 1,000 different directions because I just dropped a bottle in front of them and it hit the ground. And that's essentially what Gavin Newsom does. Now, he's a sociopath in that I don't know that he knows who he is or what he stands for or what he thinks. He thinks anything anyone wants him to think. He has a, to be fair to him, he has a tough job. He has a constituency that's filled with nut jobs, and he has to try to satiate them all the time. And if he ever just said, hey, get your together, dads, raise your kids, do your homework, and we're done, then he would be tarred and feathered. So he can't say what it is. He's a roofer, and he goes and looks at a house, and it has a 10-foot by 10-foot hole in the middle of the roof. And somebody says, why is all the water pouring in? And he says, it's a multitude of issues, and it's nuanced. And you go, there's a 10-foot hole in the roof. And he goes, this is about gutters, it's about fascia. And then you go, there's a 10-foot hole in the roof. And he goes, my grandparents came here with no roof. And you go, there's a 10-foot hole in the roof. And he goes, it's much more detailed and nuanced than that. And I wish I could sit here. So he's got a really hard job because he's a roofer. There's a 10-foot hole in the roof. All the water's pouring through it. And he has to talk about everything except for the 10-foot hole in the roof. And most Democrats paint themselves in a corner. And so you have to, there's a 10-foot hole in the roof and you're going back to 1851. That's their problem.
If you like this clip, we've got so much more where that came from. So be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you won't miss our new videos as they come out each week.